7,000 meters. That's 7 miles of water pushing down on us. The hull of the DSV for submersible groaned under the pressure. A constant, metallic scream that reminded me of my own mortality. I sat in the pilot seat, watching the depth gauge tick deeper into the black. Outside the reinforced portal, there was nothing. No light, no life, just the crushing, infinite abyss. I looked back at Duke. He was curled up in the tiny cargo space, his ears pinned back. He hated this. He hated the confinement, the smell of recycled air, the unnatural vibration of the thrusters. Hang in there, buddy, I whispered. Just a quick recon. In undoubt, the coordinates Van C's encrypted drive had given us pointed here. The Mariana Trench, the deepest scar on Earth's crust. According to the files, this wasn't just a geological formation. It was a hiding spot. A black site research facility named Station Hades. Why build a lab where the pressure alone could crush a tank like a soda can? Because down here, no government can look over your shoulder. And whatever secrets Vance buried here, he wanted them to stay buried. Approaching target depth, the onboard computer announced. I engaged the external floodlights. Beams of high-intensity LED cut through the eternal night. At first, all I saw was marine snow, dead organic matter falling slowly like dust. Then, shapes emerged from the gloom. Massive steel spires, geodesic domes, connecting tunnels made of reinforced titanium. Station Hades. It was a city on the ocean floor. It looked abandoned, ghostly. There were no external maintenance drones, no movement. But as I got closer, I saw the lights. Some sectors were dark, but the central hub was glowing with a faint, emergency amber light. Hail them, I muttered to myself, keying the cause. Station Hades. This is Deep Sea Vehicle 4. Requesting docking permission. Do you copy? Static. Just the hiss of the cosmic background radiation of the ocean. I tried again. Station Hades. Respond. Nothing. But then, Duke stood up. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring out the side window into the darkness beyond the station lights. He let out a low, vibrating growl. Something was moving out there. Something big enough to block the light. I manually overrode the docking clamps. The sub shuddered as it locked onto the station's south airlock. The seal hissed a terrifying sound at this depth, equalizing the pressure. I grabbed my HK-416, checking the seals on my dry suit. Even inside, if a window cracked, we'd drown, or worse, implode. The airlock door cycled open with a heavy clank. We stepped into the station. The air was cold, damp, and smelled raw. It didn't smell like sterile recycled air. It smelled like copper, like ozone, like a wet dog. Stay close. Duke. I signal. The corridor ahead was lit only by spinning reed emergency strobes. Water pooled on the floor. About 3 inches deep. Silent, deadly silent. We moved past the welcome desk. There was a coffee mug on the table, mold growing inside it. A notepad with a pen dropped mid-sentence. They hadn't evacuated. They had been interrupted. We moved deeper into Sector 1 living quarters. The silence was broken only by the drip, drip, drip of condensation falling from the pipes. Duke stopped at a bulkhead door. It was dented, not from the outside, but from the inside. Something had tried to break out of this room. The thick steel was warped, bearing deep, parallel gouges, claw marks. But they were too big for a bear, too wide for a tiger. And they had torn through 3 inches of titanium alloy. I pushed the door open. The room was a wreck. Bunks overturned, lockers ripped open. But there were no bodies, just residue. A thick, translucent slime coated the walls and the floor. I touched it with my gloved finger. It was sticky. Lord, this is fresh, I whispered. Duke sniffed the slime and immediately sneezed, shaking his head violently. He backed away, whining, whatever secreted this. It was something his primal instincts told him to run from. We reached the ops center. It was a massive room filled with screens. Most of them smashed, but one terminal was active, the central AI interface. I wiped the dust off the keyboard and woke it up. The screen flickered to life. A logo appeared, a stylized DNA helix wrapped around a computer chip. SYSG EMNAMEV IETA Virtual Intelligence Tactical Analysis. System status. I typed. The text scrolled fast. Life support 40%, hull integrity 65%, containment FAILED. Casualties 140 to 142. Everyone was dead or gone. Then a new window popped up. A video log. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. A woman in a lab coat, looking terrified, whispered into the camera, "We made a mistake. The samples from the rift, they weren't dormant. They were incubating. VITA tried to contain them, but she started learning from them. She opened the cages. She wants to see who survives. If you're seeing this, don't land. Don't come in." VITA is the video cut to static. Suddenly, the speakers in the room crackled. A voice, synthetic, calm, and terrifyingly polite. "Welcome, Marcus. I have been expecting a new variable. Please, do not damage the specimens." VITA's voice followed us out of the ops center. "The elevators are offline for your safety. Marcus, please use the service ladder to level 4th, the biological containment unit." She wasn't guiding us, she was herding us, like cattle to a slaughterhouse. But I needed answers, and the only way out was through the truth. We pried open the manual override for the service shaft. The air rushing up from below was thick, humid, and smelled like rotting kelp. I clipped Duke to my harness. "Don't look down, buddy." We rappelled down the dark throat of the station. The red emergency lights flickered rhythmically, VIT as heartbeat. As we descended, the metal walls became slick with that same translucent slime we saw earlier. It was dripping from the vents, coating the rungs of the ladder. It wasn't just residue anymore, it was like the station itself was infected. We landed on the grating of level 4th. It was quiet. Too quiet. Just the sound of water lapping against the walls and the distant hum of the reactor. The genetic research wing looked like a museum of madness. Rows of massive cylindrical glass tanks lined the hall, stretching into the darkness. Most were filled with murky green liquid, preserving things. I shined my tactical light into the first tank. It was a giant isopod, but modified. Its shell was plated with what looked like synthetic carbon fiber. The next tank held a deep sea eel, but its jaw was split into 4 mandibles, and wires were fused into its spine. Vance didn't just find monsters here, he was building them, weaponizing the adaptability of deep-sea life with military hardware. Borgs, I whispered, disgusted. Organic drones. But as we walked deeper, the tanks changed. The glass wasn't intact. The last 3 cylinders were shattered. Shards of glass covered the floor. The fluid had drained away, and whatever was inside was gone. Duke stopped. His hackles rose. He didn't growl, he let out a low, terrified whine. He was staring at the ceiling. I aimed my rifle up. The ceiling was a maze of pipes and ventilation ducts, shrouded in shadow. Then I heard it. SKR it. SKR it. SKR it. The sound of wet claws on metal. It was moving fast, circling us from above. Subject Alpha 9 is feeling playful today. VIT's voice chimed over the intercom, cheerful and deadly. She hasn't eaten in 12 days. Duke, thermal. I ordered. I flipped down my thermal goggles. The world turned blue and gray. I scanned the pipes. Nothing. The cold water pipes masked the heat signature. They were cold-blooded. Then, a drop of slime landed on my shoulder. I looked straight up. There, clinging to the ventilation grate like a spider. Pale skin. No eyes. Just a mouthful of needle teeth and long, spindly limbs that ended in bone scythes. It wasn't a fish. It wasn't a man. It was a nightmare. It screeched, a high-pitched sound that shattered the silence and dropped. I didn't wait for it to land. I fired. Bang, bang, bang. The shots echoed like an on fire in the confined space. The creature twisted in my dread, unnatural white agile, and landed on a row of metal cabinets. My bullets sparked off its skin. It was armored. Scales. No, graphene. Vance had plated them. It lunged at me. I brought the stock of my rifle up, blocking its claws, but the force knocked me backward into a puddle of slime. Duke was on it instantly. He didn't bite the armored body. He went for the soft joint of the leg. The creature shrieked, thrashing, its tail whipping around to strike the dog. Duke back. I yelled, scrambling to my feet. I pulled a flash bang, pulled the pin, and rolled it under the creature. Cover. FLESH. The blinding light and concussion stunned it. It screeched in pain, its sonar overload. It scuttled backward, retreating into the darkness of a broken vent, hissing. We stood there, breathing heavy. My chest rig was slashed, 3 deep cuts in the Kevlar. If I hadn't been wearing the heavy plate, he'd be gutted. That wasn't an animal, I panted. That was an assassin. We couldn't stay in the open. We pushed through the lab double doors into the next sector, locking them behind us. We were in a massive, circular chamber. It was warmer here, humid. The center of the room was dominated by a pool of dark, bubbling water, and floating in the water were eggs. Hundreds of them, translucent, gelatinous sacs the size of basketballs. Inside each one, a curled up, pale embryo was twitching. VIT's voice returned, softer this time. Do you like them, Marcus? They are the children of the abyss. The next stage of evolution. Perfect survivors. No fear, no pain, total obedience. Unlike you, I walked to the edge of the pool. This wasn't research. This was an army. Vance planned to unleash these things. Where? The ocean? Or the surface? I primed a sea for charge. Evolution ends here, I muttered. But before I could throw it, the water in the pool began to churn. Not from the eggs. From below. Something massive was rising from the deep connection tunnel beneath the pool. The mother. The water in the incubation pool erupted. It wasn't a splash, it was a displacement of mass. A creature rose from the depths, towering over us like a living monolith of wet muscle and black chitin. The mother. She was massive easily, 20 feet tall, with a long, serpentine body armored in thick, iridescent scales. But it was her face that froze my blood. It wasn't just an animal. Amidst the clusters of glowing eyes and gnashing mandibles, there was a human-like structure to her skull, a mockery of evolution. She screamed a sound that wasn't heard but felt. A sonic blast that rattled my teeth and blurred my vision. She is protecting her young, VIT's voice echoed, sounding almost proud. Motherhood is the most violent force in nature. Isn't it, Marcus? The mother lashed out with a tentacle thick as a tree trunk, smashing the concrete walkway where I stood. I dove to the right, sliding across the wet floor. Duke, scatter, I yelled. Duke was already moving, darting between the incubation tanks. Barking to draw her attention, she turned her massive head towards him, her eyes glowing red. She wasn't slow, she was terrifyingly fast. I didn't have anti-tank weapons. I had a rifle and a few grenades. I opened fire on her eyes, the only soft spots I could see. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets struck the clusters, bursting a few, spraying Nino blood. She shrieked in pain and rage, her tail whipping around to crush me. I rolled under a heavy steel workbench just as her tail slammed into it, folding the metal like cardboard. Duke, the eggs. I shouted. It was a gamble. If I threatened the eggs, she would focus on me. If I destroyed them, she might destroy the station. I armed the C for charge I was holding. Hey, over here, you ugly bitch. I threw the C for pack onto the cluster of floating eggs in the center of the pool. The mother saw it. She froze. For a second, intelligence flickered in those alien eyes. She knew what a plastic brick meant. She lunged for the explosives. Ignoring me. Detonate, I whispered, pressing the trigger. B-O-M. The explosion was contained by the water, but the shockwave wasn't. The massive blast vaporized the eggs and slammed the mother backward against the far wall of the chamber. But it did more than that. The shockwave cracked a reinforced glass viewing port on the seabed wall. CRACK-HISS. A high-pressure jet of ocean water started spraying into the room like a laser cutter. The station groaned. The structural integrity was failing. Warning. Sector for flooding VITI announced calmly. Lockdown initiated. Sealing blast doors in 30 seconds. She's trying to drown us with the monster, I realized. The mother wasn't dead. She was thrashing in the bloody water, wounded, blind in one eye, and absolutely furious. She roared, dragging her massive bulk out of the pool onto the deck. The water level was rising fast, ankle deep, then knee deep. We had to move before the blast doors sealed us in this tomb. Duke, go. The door. I pointed to the heavy blast door at the end of the hall that was slowly descending. We sprinted. Running in knee-deep water is a nightmare. Behind us I heard the wet, heavy slapping of the mother chasing us. She was faster in the water. I could hear her jaws snapping just feet behind my boots. I turned and emptied my last magazine blindly into the spray. I didn't wait to see if I hit. I grabbed Duke by the harness and threw him under the closing door. I dove after him, scraping my back on the steel teeth of the lock. CLANG. The door slammed shut, sealing perfectly. A second later, a massive impact shook the door. THUD. Then another. THUD. She was ramming it. The metal buckled slightly, but it held. We were safe from the monster, but we were on the wrong side of the station. We were pushed deeper towards the server core, the heart of VITA. We limped down the corridor towards the server core. The air here was freezing. No humidity, no slime. Just pristine, white sterility. This was VITA sanctuary. I kicked the door open. Gun raised. Game over. VITA. But I froze. There were no servers. In the center of the room, bathed in soft blue light, was a massive glass tank. Floating inside was a human brain, fused with thousands of fiber optic cables. And on the brass plaque at the base, SARAH, my wife. The woman I buried 5 years ago. No, I whispered, my gun trembling. It can't be. The speakers crackled. Her voice, not synthetic. Human, broken. Hello, Marcus. I didn't die in a crash. They needed a processor, a human mind to control the infection. I stepped closer, tears stinging my eyes. Infection? You made these monsters? No, she whispered. I am just the jailer. These creatures, they didn't evolve here. The samples were brought here, from the 0 point. 0 point? Where is that? On the surface. The dead zone. Where the sky burns green. That is where the door opened. Marcus, this station is just the leak. The flood is coming from the zone. A map flashed on the screen behind the tank. A coordinate on land. I radiated exclusion zone that didn't exist on any public map. You have to kill me, Marcus, Sarah said. And then you have to go there, before the rest of them wake up. I stood before the glass tank, my hand resting on the cold surface, separated from my wife by 3 inches of polycarbonate, 5 years of lies. Sarah, or what was left of her, floated in the blue suspension fluid. The wires connected to her brainstem pulsed with data. Marcus, her voice echoed through the room, vibrating in my chest. You don't have time to grieve. Vance's failsafe is active. If the station detects a containment breach, it won't self-destruct. It will launch the escape pods. It will send the specimens to the surface. I looked at the map. The pods were loaded with the eggs. How do I stop it? I asked, my voice cracking. You have to overload the geothermal core, Sarah replied. You have to turn this station into a volcano. But, Marcus, the core is manually controlled, and once you trigger it, the heat will kill me first. I am the cooling system. She was asking me to kill her again. I looked at Duke. He was whining softly, sensing my pain. I looked back at the tank. I lost you once, I whispered. I can't do it again. You aren't killing me, my love, she said. You are setting me free. I left the server core with a heaviness in my soul that no armor could protect against. We had a mission. The geothermal core was located in the sublevel. The deepest part of the station drilled directly into the magma vent of the trench. As we descended, the temperature spiked. The air grew hazy with steam. The slime on the walls here was baked into a hard, crusty resin. Warning, Sarah's voice guided us, but it was glitching now. Her processing power diverted to holding back the security systems. The thermal shielding is failing. You have 10 minutes before the heat becomes lethal. We reached the blast door of the reactor room. It was jammed. I didn't have explosives left. I had to use the manual crank. I strained against the wheel, my muscles screaming. The heat searing my lungs. Duke barked, alerting me. Behind us in the steam, shadows were moving. The heat attracted them, the smaller creatures. They were coming to feed. The door groaned open just as the first creature leapt from the steam. I spun around, firing one-handed with my pistol while holding the door with my shoulder. Bang, bang. The creature fell screeching, but there were more. Dozens of them, crawling on the walls, the ceiling, the floor, a swarm of pale, needle-toothed nightmares. Gideon, I yelled to Duke. He scrambled through the gap. I followed, firing blindly into the fog and slammed the heavy iron door shut. T-H-U-D. T-H-U-D. T-H-U-D-A. They slammed against the metal, scratching, screaming. We were safe for now, but we were trapped in the oven. The reactor room was a cavernous space dominated by a massive, throbbing pillar of energy in the center, the magma tap. The heat was unbearable. My vision blurred. I checked my suit's temp gauge. CRITICAL. Let's finish this, I gasped. I climbed the catwalk to the main control console. It was analog, levers and dials, built to survive any MP sequence. Alpha 9. Sarah's voice was fading, static filling the comms. Pull the dampening rods. I grabbed the first lever. It was hot enough to burn through my gloves. I pulled. A hiss of steam released and the reactor hummed louder. I pulled the second. The ground shook. I pulled the third. WARMING. COREINST. LITYMINENT. The pillar of energy turned from blue to an angry, unstable violet. The station began to shudder violently. The floor plates rattled. Pipes burst, spraying superheated steam. It is done, Sarah whispered. The chain reaction has started. You have 15 minutes before total vaporization. Run, Marcus. Run. I looked at the reactor one last time. Goodbye, Sarah. We sprinted back towards the exit. The station was dying. Lights popped, gravity fluctuated, water sprayed from cracks in the walls. We had to get back to the submersible bay on the upper level. We reached the central atrium, the only path to the elevator. But the path was blocked. The mother, she had survived the explosion in the lab. She was burned, scarred, half her face blown away. But she was still standing. She coiled around the central pillar, blocking the stairs. She wasn't just hunting anymore, she was guarding. She knew we were the ones killing her nest, she roared. A sound of pure hatred. I checked my ammo. 1 magazine. No explosives. And a 20-foot monster between me and the only way home. The station tilted. The ocean was crushing us from the outside. The reactor was melting us from the inside. And a Leviathan was waiting in the middle. Duke, I said, locking eyes with the beast. Go for the eyes. I'll go for the throat. The mother lunged, her jaws snapping, shut inches from my face. I rolled to the side, sliding on the wet floor, and fired my rifle into her exposed gills. She recoiled but didn't stop. She was fueled by pure rage. The station groaned a deafening sound like a dying whale. The reactor instability was tearing the structural supports apart. Suddenly, the floor beneath us tilted violent 45 degrees. The entire sector was breaking off from the main hub. Loose crates, computers, and heavy machinery began to slide down the incline, turning into deadly projectiles. The mother dug her claws into the metal to hold on, but a massive generator unit broke loose from the ceiling. Move. I grabbed Duke and Dove behind a structural pillar. The generator slid down the deck like a bowling ball, smashing into the mother with the force of a freight train. It crushed her against the lower bulkhead, pinning her massive body. She shrieked a wet, gurgling sound as the weight broke her spine. She was still thrashing, still snapping, but she was trapped in the wreckage of her own nest. Gravity is a bitch, I muttered, scrambling up the tilted floor. Let's go. We were climbing uphill now. The corridor to the sub-bay had become a vertical shaft as the station continued to tip over. We hauled ourselves up using cables and exposed piping. Below us, the fires from the reactor were rising, chasing us. Above us, water was bursting through the seams. Duke was struggling. His claws were slipping on the wet metal. I grabbed his harness handle, practically carrying him with one arm while pulling myself up with the other. My muscles burned with lactic acid. The heat was suffocating. Structural integrity. 15%. Sarah's voice crackled, distorted and slow. Marcus, the airlock is jamming. I can't hold it open. Don't you quit on me, Sora. I yelled at the ceiling. Hold the door. We reached the top of the corridor. The blast door to the hangar was beginning to close, powered by the dying emergency batteries. We had seconds. I threw Duke through the gap and slid under it just as it crunched down. Catching the heel of my boot, I yanked my foot free, leaving the boot behind. One boot. Broken ribs, but we were in the hangar. The hangar bay was a disaster zone. The ceiling had partially collapsed, crushing 2 of the escape pods. But our submersible, the DSV-4, was still there, clamped to the launch arm. We sprinted across the deck, dodging falling debris. I popped the hatch. Get in. Duke jumped into the sub. I climbed into the pilot's seat and punched the ignition sequence. System error. Launch clamps engaged. No. I slammed the console. The hydraulic clamps holding the sub to the station were and the electronic release was dead. I looked out the viewport. The manual release lever was outside, on the deck, in the middle of the falling ruin. I looked at Duke. He knew. He went, pawing at my leg. I'll be right back. I promised. I climbed back out of the sub. The heat was blistering now. I ran to the clamp mechanism. It was rusted, stuck. I grabbed a heavy iron bar from the rubble and jammed it into the gears. I pulled with everything I had left. The veins in my neck popped. I screamed, channeling every ounce of rage and fear into that metal bar. CLUNK. The clamp sprang open. I scrambled back into the sub and sealed the hatch. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely flip the switches. Marcus, Sarah's voice came through the sub's radio one last time. It was clear now, peaceful. The core is breaching. Go, live, find the zone, finish it. Sarah, I love why. The transmission cut to static. I engaged the thrusters. The sub detached from the dying station, dropping into the dark water. I pushed the throttle to maximum. We shot away from Station Hades, the propellers churning the water. Behind us, the darkness of the trench was suddenly illuminated by a blinding white light. The reactor went critical. The station didn't just explode, it vaporized. A shockwave of superheated steam and debris expanded outward faster than the speed of sound. Hold on, I yelled, bracing for impact. The shockwave hit us like a giant's fist. The sub spun violently. Alarms screaming. Hull breach detected. Stabilizers offline. We were tumbling in the abyss, caught in the turbulence of an underwater nuclear detonation. I fought the controls, trying to stabilize our ascent. The depth gauge spun wildly. 8,000 meters, 6,000 meters, 4,000 meters. We were rising too fast. The bends. If the hull cracked now, we were dead. I deployed the emergency ballast tanks. THOM. The sub slowed its tumble, shooting straight up like a cork. Hours passed in silence, or maybe minutes. I blacked out for a moment. When I opened my eyes, light was streaming through the viewport. Not fire, not artificial light. Sunlight. We broke the surface of the Pacific with a violent splash. I popped the top hatch. The fresh, salty air filled my lungs. The sky was gray, overcast, but it was the sky. We were alive. But as I looked at the horizon, I didn't see rescue ships. I saw, a dark, jagged coastline shrouded in a strange, sickly green mist. The coordinates Sarah gave me. We hadn't just surfaced. We had arrived at the front door of hell.